T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So, over the weekend, I was able to start digging into all of the happenings of this team. And one of the things I like to do, and I've done for the past 2 years now, 3 years this year would be, is track the official 30 visits of the Washington Commanders. And I think this gives you a little insight as to what they're thinking about, what they're looking at. And I told you guys this before, and I've told you in the past, it's not so much the actual player that I kind of take a look at, even though I take that into consideration as well when you're starting to craft mock drafts and things of that nature. But a lot of times the guys that are in on those 30 those official 30-day visits aren't the guys that they actually have a chance to draft. And a lot of times they have these official visits with these players in hopes that that player will be available in a specific range. And in their minds, if this player is there and they're the best player on the board at that time, we'll snag him, right? But you really just want to get to know that player a little bit more. And what those official 30 visits represent is an opportunity to go outside of the 15 minutes you may have had at the combine, the 20 minutes you may have had at that person's or player's pro day, outside of a East-West Shrine Bowl game meeting you might have had that was informal for, 15, 20 minutes. This gives you an actual opportunity to have that prospect into your facility for an entire day. You can meet with that guy as long as you like for that day, right? So you can go out to lunch or you can go out to dinner. You can take them to a basketball game if you so choose. You can put them on the whiteboard. Hey, this is one of the concepts we like to run. What would your responsibility be here? Or they could tell them a play, erase it, show them two more plays, and then come back and show them the first play and say, hey, put that first play that we showed you up on the board and talk about the responsibilities of X, Y, Z, and see if how good their recall is, right? Show them some tape. That's an opportunity to go over tape, right? You sit them down, some things that you looked at that you loved, and you ask them, hey, what were you thinking here? And then also, conversely, you show them some things you didn't love and some questions you may have about some decisions they made on tape. Hey, what were you thinking about? Walk me through your process here as you made this decision here. And have him tell you why he did what he did and see if it makes sense to you. And then also, you may have, and a lot of times, what it boils down to is if you don't have questions about a guy, then there's no need to bring him in on an official 30. That's why I said it's not usually a great idea. Now, at least this was with the last staff. And that's why I kind of erased the memory bank, so to speak, and reprogram my brain now to look at it from a different lens, because everything that I had been done in a manner that would allow me to try to adapt and adjust to the Rivera way of thinking, which was a very, very warped way of thinking and doing things that was very unproductive. This is a rational group, so it's not going to be hard for me to rewire my brain and get me to be thinking in a different light. However, it is going to take a little bit of time, because with the Rivera group, they always brought guys in generally because they had questions. It wasn't always, hey, let's just make sure he's the right guy, he's the right fit here. It was a lot of times, and Mark Mayhew told us, a lot of times it would be, hey, you had some off the field stuff. Hey, you had some medical stuff. Hey, there was some spotty play here. We just want to iron some things out, kind of figure out what was going on and see if you're a good fit or not, right? Sometimes if you like a guy, it's okay to make it known that you like a player, right? Sometimes that could hurt you. It could work in your benefit, but the whole, I'm not with wasting opportunities. If you like a player, I'm not for, because guess what? You're not the only one that likes a player. But what you're willing to spend on that player versus what someone else is willing to spend on that player could be two totally different perspectives. And they could have a top 60 grade on this guy. You got a top 90 grade, and you're more thinking 75 to 90 with that 78th overall pick. If he's there, I'm going to take him. This other team is like, yo, if we get to our second round pick at 54 and he's there, we're taking him. And it's two totally different perspectives on the same player, right? So it doesn't take much, and I get hiding your intentions and things of that nature. This draft process is a tricky one. I've said that many a times, which is why I always tell you be careful because you're going to hear a lot of foolishness this time of the year. But all in all, I've said this before and I'll say it again. The biggest takeaway for me with these official 30 visits are really seeing the positions and knowing where those players are slotted to go, where they're being mocked and projected to land, and then thinking about that in context of where, Washington selects. So up until this point, at the time of this recording, Washington has had 3 players in for an official visit. 2 of them are tackles, 1 is a tight end. So what does that say to you right away? Right out of the gate. What does that say? Okay. Now, let me be more specific. It's the tackle from Yale. All right. We're going to call him Kieran A, because I don't know how to say his last name. There's the tackle from Arizona, Jordan Morgan. And then there's the tight end from Texas, Jatavian Sanders. Those are the 3 players that they've had on their official visits. So 2 left tackles who are right now slated to go in that upper half of the second round. Okay? If these tackles go at the rapid rate that we've been told for the last month that they would go, which is around 7 of them going in the first round, that would put Kieran A, Jordan Morgan, the BYU tackle, and some of those guys right at the top of the second round, along with some of those interior guys that may not go, like Graham Barton, JPJ, and some of those other guys. Those are going to be the guys that are going to be right towards the top of the second round. Chris Paul's brother, the tackle out of Houston, all of those guys will be right there, we assume. And so what that says to me, same thing with Jatavian Sanders, we don't expect a first-round tight end. I'll go out on a limb and say there won't be a first-round tight end this year. I'm pretty sure that it won't be. So he may be the first tight end off the board. He may not be the first tight end. Tight end is one of those positions that I've learned very quickly. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. We will sit here and we will talk about other. I'm telling a story. Brock Bowers, I keep forgetting about him in this draft because I haven't seen him in so long, right? He injured himself. You didn't see him at the end of the season. I think he did play in the bowl game, though, but he wasn't full strength. And then, you haven't seen him in any of the offseason things, so out of sight, out of mind, but there will be a first-round tight end. As a matter of fact, there might be a top 10 tight end. If he's not top 10, he'll definitely be top 15. So let me walk that back. But there won't be another one outside of Brock Bowers. And so because of that, the assumption is every player that they've brought in for an official 30 visit, the 3 players thus far, and just know that we'll be monitoring this, and I've done this the last 2 years, we'll monitor these visits. And as the visits start to come in, and we'll get more of these. Normally, these don't become a real thing until we get into April because the Pro Day is such an important part of the process for these evaluators because it's a lot of times for your GM, like the scouts are the ones doing all of the hard lifting and the manual labor during the course of the year. The GMs are more so focused on the regular season and the current roster and things of that nature. This is why you have those area scouts. This is why you have guys boots on the ground. So those are the guys usually doing the heavy lifting, going to the games, going to practice, talking to people, always around. So they know that know these players and they kind of know their habits, their idiosyncrasies, what's being said about them, et cetera, et cetera. The GMs, the coaches, the front office personnel, they haven't. So a lot of times the Pro Day, if a guy didn't work out at the combine, is the first time they've seen this guy work out live, right? So these Pro Days are a huge, important piece of the puzzle for, evaluators. A lot of times it's the final piece, along with meeting with that player, sitting down and really getting to know him and figuring out how important ball is to him, what he knows, what his work habits are, et cetera, et cetera. But the Pro Day is a big part of that. Once you get those out of the way, which is usually towards the beginning of April, that's when the top 30 official visits really start to come in hot and heavy. Because now you have more time on your hands. Now you have a chance to really tie up loose ends as you get your board in order and you start having those official 30s come in at a rapid rate. But they've got 3 already on the board. And all three of those guys are slated to be there in that 36 to 40 range. So that was the thing that I asked you earlier: is what's the common theme between the three players? And the theme is all three of those guys should be available at 36 or 40, right? All three of them. So right now they're focusing in on that second round target range, again, assuming that they don't do anything like trade back into the first round. And also what it says is they're really focusing in on tackle, right? At that second round range, meaning we don't expect to get one of these first round tackles. Now, again, that doesn't mean anything, okay? That doesn't prohibit them from packaging up picks and going back into the first round and identifying a guy that they think can come in and start right now. Because I think a lot of those guys that are sitting there in the second round are going to need work. That doesn't mean they can't start for you right away. It just means they're going to need work. And O-line Bobby Johnson is going to have his hands full with any of these guys that you get in the second round. If you're going to look to get them, it's a deep tackle draft because of the talent. Not because of the preparation and the readiness to play necessarily, but it's deep because you got a lot of moldable tackles, a lot of guys with traits that you would love to get your hands on, and they have the size and the length as the tackle for Yale does. 36-inch arms, are you kidding me? The guy's massive, right? But he's a work in progress, very raw, right? Things that he's got, hand placement is an issue sometimes. The punch, the consistency of it, things of that nature. So, there's going to be a lot of things that have to be ironed out with some of these guys, especially if you're not. This is why it is imperative if you want to tackle, especially one that's ready to go right out of the packaging. You usually want to draft those guys in the top half of the first round because those are the guys that are most ready to go, right? They're the ones with those profiles that suggest they can come in and start for you right away. But again, that doesn't always end up being how it falls, right? A lot of times we see guys that are drafted back into the first round, into the second and third round, start as tackles. Now, a lot of times those guys don't start, right? But that doesn't mean they don't end up being really good tackles in the league. So you never know how these things are going to go, right? We ended up getting Morgan Moses in the third round, and he ended up being a cornerstone tackle for us for 6 or 7 years, right? So you don't know how it's going to go. We also drafted several tackles in the third and the fourth round, and those guys turned out to be busts that never really, contributed at any level for Washington during their tenure here, right? So you don't know how it's going to go. At the end of the day, you got to take a swing, and it seems like they're gearing themselves up, barring some kind of trade back into the first round, to take a swing at a tackle, which is what they should do at either 36 or 40. And to me, that's what this, not necessarily those particular tackles, Jordan Morgan, who I'm not the biggest fan of, shorter arms, solid, really solid athlete, one of the better probably athletes you'll find in this year's class, but I still think his feet are heavy, right? The hand placement and the hand usage is horrible if you ask me. He's not athletic enough to me moving laterally. Guys seem to get around him too quick, if you ask me. But some of this could be cleaned up with coaching. Again, this is why I said a lot of these guys, it's not necessarily the tape that gets you excited. It's the measurables. It's the traits, right? It's not the tape. The tape isn't always clean, but it's looking at the guy, looking at his size, looking at his ability and saying, hey, we can do something with that. You get the right guy, you get a teacher in there, we can do something with this player. So I'm anxious to see how the rest of these visits kind of take shape, because right now those first three say to me we're really looking to be active with these official 30s, because they know what they're going to do in the first round, right? No, they know that. I know you guys heard Dan Quinn over the weekend say that it wouldn't be a stretch to imagine Washington taking a quarterback. Like, we all know that. That's not a story. That's not something that needs to be, regurgitated over and over again. He didn't reveal anything that we didn't already know. It was the same thing when Doug Williams told, NFL Network around the Super Bowl that Washington was taking a quarterback. I mean, he wasn't supposed to say that, but we already know that, right? There are only a select few in the fan base that thought otherwise, or still think that not taking a quarterback at 2 and trading back is the right thing to do. But which one they're going to take is the question. It's the $1,000,000 question. But right now, they know what they're doing in the first round. So I think they're focusing their attention early, at least, on these official 30s, on guys that are going to be there in that early second round, 36 to 40 range. I'm intrigued by the names that are on this list already. We'll see what other names end up being on this list, because you have a working knowledge of where you think some of these players are going to end up. And if you start to see a lot of them, then that means, okay, this is what they're targeting potentially in the third round, right? Right now, what this says is at 36 and 40, they're considering tight end and tackle. Again, not a specific player, even though they've talked to some guys, but this is what they're looking at. This is what they're interested in, which is what they should be interested in, specifically tackle. Tight end, it's anybody's guess. I think they're going to do something at tight end. I've already told you that I think in the first 6 picks, they've got 6 in the top 100. I would be shocked if they didn't come away with some combination of quarterback, tackle, wide receiver, corner, tight end. I'd be shocked. Okay, that's the range in which that seems like it's going to be the most fruitful, is right in that range where we have all those selections. I'd be shocked if some sort of combination of those positions aren't taken care of. So tight end is one of them. That's where I think it's going to be its most ripe in this draft, is in the second and third round. That's when you'll start to see them really come off the board. And we'll see what Washington does at that point, right? So let me know what you think. Tackle obviously is being prioritized, with 2 of the 3 guys they've talked to on official visits being tackles right in that second round range, right around 36 to 40, where they'll be selecting. Same with the tight end, Jatavian Sanders out of Texas. He'll be there, right in that 36 to 40 range. That's what they're looking at right now. Obviously, this is going to be spread out all over the place. We'll see if they dedicate their official 30s to these quarterbacks. One would think that they may or may not. Right? You go to their pro day, you spend some time. Remember, they spent time with J.J. McCarthy the day before his pro day. They went there and made it a point of emphasis to do that. I don't think they did that with Caleb Williams, because they know he's not going to be available, right? So they didn't even waste their time. That's my assumption. We didn't hear anything about that. I wouldn't be shocked, though, if they did the same thing towards the end of the month here at the 2 big ones, Jaden Daniels and Drake Mays pro days, and if they didn't try to go and wine and dine those guys beforehand, right? Because they know during the day they're not going to have that same type of time with them. And is that an official visit? No, but is it sort of like an official visit? Sure it is, right? You get to spend extended time with a guy and get to know him and kind of figure out, is this the right fit? And I think they have enough intel already to kind of know. And maybe there's a few gaps in there. Maybe there's just a comfort level thing that they would love to kind of put a check mark next to. But really, I think they probably know by now. I mean, there's not much left to be decided there. The tape is there. They've met these players multiple times. Again, the ultimate, I think, decision maker is going to be sitting down with these prospects, particularly at the top of the draft, and getting to know them. What makes them tick? How dedicated they are to ball. How dedicated they are to their craft, right? Like when I say dedicated to ball, like how important is it to you? And then when I say dedicated to their craft, are you getting up at 4 a.m. to be at the team facility at 5 and being the last one to leave at 7:30 that night, 8 o'clock that night when everybody else left at 5, right? Like how much does this actually mean to you, and what are you willing to sacrifice to be great? Are you a leader? What is your mental acumen for the game, right? This is the protection. This is the look. This is what they're coming with. What are you going to do, right? Put it on the board for us. I think once they get past all of that stuff, then the decision is made. They may have already made that decision, and they just want that guy to solidify that for them once they sit down and meet with him. That's what I think at this point is they kind of have an idea. It may not be set in stone, but they've got an idea which direction they're leaning towards. And I think the thing that's going to hammer that home for him is sitting down with that guy in particular and just having a chance to talk to him, see how he feels about everything and how they feel about him. And after that is all said and done, I think the decision will be already made. And the hay will be in the barn, so to speak. Anyway, we're gonna keep a running tab of these official 30s. So as some big ones happen, there'll be a video. I'll try to wait until like 3 or 4 more of these kind of come together. I don't want to every single one happens. We can talk about them 2, 3 at a time. Usually that's how I do it: 2, 3, 4, 5 at a time, to kind of keep you abreast of these. So they've got 27 left. They've used 3 officially, and we'll see, what direction they kind of head in, and that will kind of help determine, at least it has for me in the past, how I kind of synchronize my mock draft for the team with that. We'll see what happens. But anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care.